Have you ever taken antibiotics? They might have saved your life. When antibiotics were introduced, they were like miracle drugs. It seemed they could beat almost any germ that came along. Well, we've overused these weapons. And now diseases we once thought we had conquered are making dangerous comebacks. Humans versus bacteria. Unfinished business. In 14th century Europe, 56 million people died of the Black Plague. People believed the plague was caused by poisonous gases emanating from the earth. And doctors wore these suits with flower petals in this beak, apparently believing it would protect them from the disease. Now, the idea that there are germs and that they cause disease is something we take for granted these days. But can you imagine a time when people didn't know the cause of infections, didn't know about hygiene, didn't know about germs?
Oh, is he good? Because my tooth is killing me and they said I should see him.
Oh, yeah. He'll gouge it right out with his great big horrible knife. It's practically painless. Oh, here he comes.
Oh, I'm sorry, fellows, but I'm running a bit behind and I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to see you today.
But I came all the way from my village and my tooth is driving me nuts.
And all I need is to have my boil last.
Yes, yes. Well, all right, very well. Let's take a look at it here. I've seen worse. All right, and that... There's the culprit. Probably. Pay the woman on your way up. Carry on.
You're right, he is good.
Yeah, the best. Funny thing, though, he pulled one of my cousin's tooths last week, and now his jaw's all swollen up and he's consumed with a fever. I can't explain it.
He must have sinned.
Yeah.
Hey, fellas, I couldn't help but overhear you,
Who are you?
I'm Bill. I'm William. William of Nye. And the problems you're having are caused by bacteria and viruses.
Becky.
And you wouldn't be having all this trouble if you just wash your hands once in a while. Bacteria, viruses, wash your hands. Any of this ring a bell?
Oh, sure. Wash your hands and the sickness will stop.
Yeah, the sickness caused by the tiny little creatures.
It's like my worst day in high school. Some bacteria attack your cells. Some bacteria produce toxins. Some bacteria you can't live without. But when the wrong ones get inside you, they can make you sick. Sometimes sick enough to kill you. Now take a look at this. It's a graph of the mortality rate, the number of deaths per 100,000 people. This one is for infectious diseases over the last 100 years. You see, it starts out big. There are a lot of people dying of infectious diseases. We're talking about bacteria and viruses, causing diseases like pneumonia, cholera, and typhoid fever. You see, people were just becoming aware of germs and how they cause disease and how they spread. So although this graph starts out high, it is headed down. Fewer and fewer of us were dying of infectious diseases each year. That's because more municipalities got good at purifying and storing water. More and more of us got connected to high-quality sewer systems. We could wash diseases right off our hands, out of our living spaces, and down the drain. That said, take a look here in 1918. There's a huge spike. That's because 25 million people died of the Spanish flu in just 4 months. It took the 40 years of World War I to kill 25 million people. 25 million people. I mean, that's a lot of people. That's enough people to fill the stadium. Not once, not a dozen times. It would fill the stadium 400 times. And they all died in just one winter. That was one deadly disease. Well, anyway, after that, the rate of death by infectious disease started going down again as more and more of us got more sanitary.
Say, Darren, what are you doing in there, bub?
I'm not washing, guys. I'm just scratching myself with the bar of soap.
As long as you're not washing yourself.
No way, I'm not a washer.
You smell awful clean for a guy who wasn't washing.
I'm not a washer.
Oh, that's good, because I hear only squares and dancing sailors wash themselves. Ain't that right, Jimmy?
Yeah, only dancing sailors. I don't know why all the guys are saying I'm a washer. Well, I'm dirty. I got dirty hands and I'm eating a dirty apple.
We love
You're a dirty
rebel, Darren.
And I'm going to eat lots of dirty apples. Lots of them. I should have washed that apple. I should have washed my hands. I should have washed something. I'm feeling kind of sick and kind of dizzy. Dizzy like a dancing sailor. Like a spinning sailor-go-round doll.
I guess hep cats do wash their hands, guys.
I learned my lesson. The only dancing I'm doing is with a bar of soap.
In 1928, there was a breakthrough. Penicillin was discovered. It was the first antibiotic. Now, antibiotics kill bacteria. But it wasn't until 1942, when World War II was being fought, that penicillin was manufactured in large quantities. It was the first mass-produced antibiotic drug. And we used penicillin on the battlefield, in surgery, and for routine infections at home. And sure enough, the line turns down sharply. Now, this was good. But by the 1960s, this was great. We developed all kinds of new antibiotics. It's been called the golden age of antibiotic discovery. It seemed like we had a pill that could kill almost any bug. In 1969, the Surgeon General declared, "We have won the war on infectious disease." Now, this turned out to be a pretty hopeful statement, because the line has started back up again. There are a few new diseases, like the human immunodeficiency virus. But also, it's partly because bacterial bugs have developed a resistance to our antibiotic drugs. These are the same drugs that used to kill them. Now, an antibiotic is a selective poison. It kills certain bacteria without harming the cells in your body. Now, different types of antibiotics affect different bacteria in different ways. But let's say this is a petri dish full of cells, and they're under attack by these blue bacteria. And this glove represents penicillin. And this type of antibiotic interferes with a bacterium's ability to construct its cell walls. So when it encounters the penicillin, the bacteria burst open and die. When you take antibiotics, the bacteria in your body will either die or they will survive, because their genes carry a mutation that makes them resistant to the drug. Now, that's how bacteria evolve resistance to antibiotics. Bacteria die or mutate, and they're mutating faster than we can come up with new drugs. That's the problem. This is serious business. The United States alone spends billions of dollars at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Here, antibiotic drug resistance is considered an enormous threat to public health. I'm going in. I wanted to see for myself what the CDC knows about the dangers you and I face from the growth of bacteria that are now resistant to antibiotics.
This is a staphylococcus.
Dr. Fred Tenover pointed out that resistance is inevitable. These bacteria replicate and mutate so fast that the problem of resistance is impossible to eliminate.
And so you can see these large zones here where the organism is not growing. The growth has been inhibited. That means that each of these antibiotics would be a good choice, would be effective against that infection.
Whereas,
if we look at this side of the plate, for the most part, this tells us that these antibiotics are not going to be effective. For some organism-drug combinations, like for penicillin and treating staphylococci, essentially 100% resistant. We've lost that drug. If we look particularly in hospitals now, if you're unfortunate enough to get an infection after you go into the hospital, It's probably a 70 to 75% chance that that organism is going to be resistant to at least one antibiotic. And now that what we're seeing is a progression, you know, there is no antibiotic in use now in human medicine for which we have no resistance.
It's important to have regular checkups.
Ow!
Hey, what are you doing down there?
Just a routine operation. Appendectomy. I'll have you finished up here in just a second.
I already had one of those.
You did?
Yeah, I had my appendix out.
Can I see his chart, please? Uh-oh. Egg on my face. My bad. Oh, boy. Nuts. I'll just sew you right back up. Get you on the road.
You see, the problem is that he's already opened me up. All those resistant bacteria that live and evolve in hospitals can get closed up with me. Many people that go in for major surgery leave the hospital being carriers of resistant bacteria. I could walk out of here with a staph infection that I might be able to fight off because I'm quite robust and healthy. But I could carry these germs over to my old aunt and uncle's house and pass it on to them. And they might not be so lucky.
You all know my guest tonight. She has starred in such roles as Cipro, the bacteria-fighting good guy, and also penicillin. Antibiotics. You are a true star and have saved millions of lives, but lately I hear you have fallen on hard times.
Well, part of that is the media. But it's also bad management that put me in too many roles.
You've been overexposed.
When I don't kill everything in sight, the bad germs that survive come back even stronger. And that makes me look bad.
My throat is a little sore. Would you mind if I just ate a little bit of you?
Well, you probably have a virus. It would be very bad miscasting to use me. I don't do full viral, Mr. Lipton.
Well put. Antibiotics, genius, hero, star, syphilis slayer. Thank you for joining us on our show tonight.
Thank you.
Antibiotics don't work against viruses like common colds or the flu. They're not cure-all drugs. So pressuring your doctor to give you or your kids antibiotics when you don't need them actually does more harm than good. It's estimated that in the United States, 50 million unnecessary antibiotic prescriptions are written every year. It's misuse, abuse, and especially overuse. So for now, we have to change the way we use the antibiotics that we still have. And for the future, we have to come up with new ways to fight bacteria. Now, there are organisms that have been living on Earth fighting bacteria ever since life began. We're talking about other bacteria, germs that fight germs. Check this out. We're here with Margaret Riley, Dr. Margaret Riley, at Yale University, and you study the ecology of bacteria.
That's right.
Dr. Riley is creating a new class of antibiotic drugs, ones that will kill only the specific disease-causing bacteria and leave all your other bacteria alone. If these new drugs work, they'll help slow down antibiotic resistance.
Microbes, we have them here in single culture, so one species at a time. But in nature, they live in communities and they interact, they communicate with each other, and a large part of that communication is fending for their own territories, their own resources.
Competing.
Competing,
Biological
exactly.
warfare.
And they do it through producing these toxins that kill off their neighbors.
You guys are always making up words in biology. Bacteriocin.
Well, bacteriocins are really the name of the game in the microbial world. They're the weapon of choice.
So the bacteriocin is a toxin, and it's a toxin made by a bacterium.
That's right. They kill other bacteria, and in fact, they do it very specifically. So E. coli will produce a bacteriocin that kills other E. coli, or salmonella will kill other salmonella. So it's a very